Should you buy a house now or rent and wait for the housing crash? That is what I'm going to talk about today. So stay tuned. Hi, this is Melissa Ballman, and I'm a real estate agent here in the greater Salt Lake City area. So what that means, if you're looking at making a real estate move, I'd love to connect with you. Shoot me a text, send me an email, do what you got to do, but get in touch with me. But first, today we're talking about all the buyers out there that are like, maybe I should wait and rent versus buy because the housing is going to crash and then I'm going to be paying more than I should. So I want to break that down a little bit. But first, the obvious response people are going to say is, well, you're a real estate agent. Of course, you're going to tell me to buy. But I want to show you some numbers and things historically, because at the end of the day, we can look at all the averages of national statistics, but real estate is very regional. And so you'll see coming up how Utah doesn't typically follow the same trend as the rest of the country. Also, I want to point out something. I never, ever want to put somebody in a bad position, and I don't want to tell them to do something that is going to jeopardize them and their well-being financially or otherwise. So I'm coming from a place, I have an almost 21-year-old son who wants to buy a place and move out. And so I'm taking it more from that type of approach, just like I would talking to my son. Okay, so there's no doubt inflation is going up, interest rates are going up, everything is going up right now, which means the economy is going to slow down because things are getting so pricey. And I'm not going to be one of those people that are like, I just don't want to face the reality. The reality is, I do think that this inflation is going to slow the housing market down. I've been saying it for months and months and months. Sellers are going to start having to get realistic here. Now, you'll look and you'll see throughout this video where I'm going to give you a historical look at rent prices, housing prices, what the last few recessions actually looked like with home prices. So I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you and charts and things like that. So I hope you can stick with me through this. But I'm also going to tell you a couple of things to consider here at the end of the video about if you're on the fence and in a position to buy as it is right now, but you're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to give you some things to take into consideration, to ask yourself and evaluate for yourself as well. Okay, so number one, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that a recession does not mean a housing crisis or a housing crash. If you look historically at this chart that I'm going to put up, over the last 6 recessions that we had and what the home prices did, you can see 2008 was a really big anomaly. And that was not caused by anything but bad lending practices and people getting loans that just should not get loans. But you can see even during the other recessions, home values continued to appreciate. They just didn't appreciate at the rate we have been seeing here in the Utah market for the last couple of years. So that's one thing I do want to point out. Again, I am not saying that this is going to last forever and these home prices are going to go up 30% a year. I'm not saying that. Again, I think that the market is going to slow down for home prices, but just because it's going to slow down does not mean it's going to crash. Okay, so you can see there where there was that dramatic drop in 2008 and why everybody remembers the housing bubble of 2008. But like I said, real estate is very regional and specific to certain areas. Some markets get hit dramatically different than other markets, and I think Utah is one of those markets. And I'm going to throw this graph up here of the home sales that have happened since the beginning of 2000. And you can see the line kind of, gradually going up a little bit. But take a look at the first quarter of 2008 compared to the first quarter of 2009. You're only talking $10,000-ish difference. That's not a dramatic housing crash like you saw in the previous recession that showed like a 20% decrease in home values, and that was a nationwide statistic. This one that I'm showing you for Utah specific, this is straight from the MLS here in Utah, so not a national average. You can see here that we don't take a dramatic-ish drop in home prices until the beginning of 2012, when at our highest point prior, we were at about $254,000 sales price, and that was at the first quarter of 2007. And then it drops down at the first quarter of 2012 to 207. So you're almost a $50,000 drop. That was 4 years after what nationally happened with the housing bubble that burst. Now, none of us have a crystal ball, nobody out there, and we can all analyze data to make it work in our favor and to get the end result that we are trying to accomplish. And so, it's hard to tell. That's why you see so many differing opinions about what is going to happen, because everybody's analyzing the data the way they want to analyze it. But as I just demonstrated with the difference in the home sales nationally during a recession and what Utah saw, we're about 4 years behind the national average. So let's just say, for example, that by fourth quarter of 2022, the national housing market completely crashes. Well, if we go off of our history, we know we're about 4 years behind that, where we see those big dramatic impacts. So you're talking about 2026 if we follow that same pattern. So that's something to take into consideration. Do you want to potentially wait another 4 years to do something when we know that the home prices are going to steadily increase, just not at that dramatic rate we've been seeing, like I said, since 2020. I hope you're enjoying my video so far today. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell. That way you're alerted each week when I drop a new video. Now let's take a look. You'll see that this is again a national average, that the rental prices, you see a dramatic increase in rental prices in about 2020 nationally. So if you look at the home sales price graphs and you look at this national rental graph, everything took a huge shoot up in about 2020, whether it was to purchase or to rent. So our markets are going to be very similar with rental markets versus purchasing markets. So if you can, it's probably still a good idea to buy. So, and I'm telling my son this, if you can afford to buy, it's better to get into something and get a little bit of appreciation, because you are going to be at the mercy of your landlord. I have recently heard of some people seeing $1,000 a month increase in their rent year over year. Now around here, and I'm not in the rental market, so just understand that I'm just telling you what I'm hearing and what I'm reading from the people out in the rental market. I do only home sales. But in the rental market, on average, I'm hearing more about the $300 a month increase. If you get a home loan with a fixed mortgage rate, you don't have to worry about your landlord increasing because you are locked into that fixed rate. The other problem that a lot of buyers have when we are in an up market and when we're in a housing crisis is landlords are selling off their properties. They're either wanting to maximize their money and get out of the landlord business, or they need to look out for their best interest and keep a roof over their head. So they're going to start getting rid of their rental properties if that happens, which leaves you where? So KSL published an article this week about how Salt Lake City ranked number 3 in the nation for rental home price increases. And that's significant. Now, according to this article, the rental rate increases have not been as high as home price increases or appreciation, but it's still something you need to take into consideration, because not only, like I mentioned before, are you subject to what your landlord's going to do, if they're going to sell the property or anything else, but people are having a really hard time qualifying to get into rental properties, because most of the time now landlords are asking for at least 2.5%, more likely 3% of what the monthly rent is that you make. So let's say, for instance, you find something that's $2,000 a month. Well, they're going to want to show that you actually make $6,000 a month. At that point, you might as well buy if you're making that kind of money, because then you're not having the problems that so many people are having with landlords selling out from under them, doing huge rental increases. And now people are saying, man, it would have been cheaper for me to have a mortgage payment than what we're renting for. Not to mention, how much money are people wasting on rental applications and then not getting in? I've heard rental applications are anywhere from $40 to $50 per applicant. And if you're over the age of 18, most landlords want anybody that's going to be living in the home over the age of 18 to fill out an application. So can you imagine doing that? 3, 4, 5 times a month until you secure a property. The other thing to keep in mind, if you're looking at purchasing, there are programs. People are under a misconception that you need 10 and 20% down to buy a home. That's not the case. We actually have Utah housing programs where you can go in as little as like 3.5% down. We have USDA loans that are available with 0% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, first responder, teacher, things like that, the Salt Lake Board of Realtors also does a $5,000 home grant that you can enter to win. Now, they don't give it to everybody. It is an entry, but it's something to try and help you get your foot in the door. And one thing I'm telling my son is you're going to have to start somewhere. I would much rather see you spending rent money on a condo than to just be throwing it away to your landlord. So if you don't want to live in a condo, another great option for buyers is to look at getting a multi-unit, like a duplex, because then you can live as owner occupied in one side and rent out the other side and get like half of your mortgage payment paid for you by somebody else renting out that unit. And I know that's what this video is all about, is renting or buying. And I'm trying to say that I always think it's a better idea to buy, but then I'm talking about you renting out half your unit, but it just happens. That's why this video is even in existence, is because there is such a need for housing, whether it's renting or buying in the area. So that's doable. If you can find a home that has a legal ADU or accessory dwelling unit, sometimes that's like a mother-in-law basement. Sometimes it's a studio apartment over a detached garage. Whatever it is, if you can find a home with a legal ADU, it has the same concept as the duplex that I just mentioned with rent. Another thing, we are starting to see an increase in notice of default on mortgages where people are missing payments or taxes, whatever. And that's really sad. I never want to see that happen to anybody. So if buying right now is not a good idea for you, there's things that you can be doing now to prepare. Even if it's $5 a week, you pay extra towards car payments or putting into your savings. It all adds up to get you in a good position later to get into your own home and not be so vulnerable to your landlord. If you have any real estate related questions or you want to talk to somebody and see if you're in a good position to purchase and maybe make that jump, I'd love to connect with you. I am always here to help, so reach out. But as always, make it a great day.